We have a group of documents on display in the exhibition that relate to the fascinating story of John and Yoko's ongoing legal battle with the US immigration authorities. The couple entered the US temporarily on the 13th of August 1971 to deal primarily with the custody of Yoko's daughter Kyoko. Since her divorce from Tony Cox in 1969, Yoko had been fighting for the custody of her daughter, initially in Europe, and now the battle had moved to the States. In London in 1968, John and Yoko had been arrested and charged with possession of cannabis resin. John had agreed to take a guilty plea and a fine of £150 on the condition that Yoko was not charged. The arrest has always been disputed, as Detective Norman Pilcher, the arresting officer, was notorious for targeting celebrities. And in fact, he was later found guilty of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice in other cases. So the conviction has always been questionable. With that hanging over them, travel to the US, where he was considered an excludable alien, was difficult. And when they entered in August 71, John's visa had to have a waiver of excludability attached to it. The custody battle with Tony dragged on as he became more obstructive each time Yoko was awarded custody of her daughter. Tony would file a new motion, and then the couple would, when they could not leave, their visa ran out. They employed lawyer Leon Wilds, and an extension was granted to their temporary visas. When they next applied for an extension in March, the couple petitioned for third-party preference classification. This meant that the classification was granted to individuals from the arts whose talent could benefit the US. John was expected to easily qualify for this, but instead the US Immigration Authority issued both John and Yoko with notice to leave, which we also have here on display in the museum. Wilds was able to argue successfully for Yoko to stay. They received numerous letters of support, and although initially denied, John's petition was finally granted, allowing him to further extend his temporary status. In the meantime, Yoko was again granted custody of Kyoko, this time in the US, but the proviso was that she be brought up in the US. Returning John to Britain at this point would now separate them as a family. John now made a request for permanent residence. It was initially denied, and John's earlier conviction was cited. He and his lawyer argued that there were legal inconsistencies and that he was being persecuted by the Nixon Authority, and accused the Immigration Service of selective deportation. At the time, I'm sure that this argument seemed a little far-fetched, but documents have since been released that prove that John's case had been brought to the attention of the immigration authorities by Senator Strom Thurmond. And we have a copy of that memo here in the museum. We also know that the Nixon administration did have the couple under surveillance. Their connection to known activists such as Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, and their potential to influence the youth of America, was clearly considered to be a threat by the US government. Gradually, the Nixon administration seemed to lose interest in the couple. Finally, after failed hearings with the Board of Immigration and the District Court, Judge Irving Kaufman heard the case on the 8th of October 1975, the day before their son Sean was born. He reversed the decision, barred the deportation order, and in July 1976, John's green card was issued.